Hi, and welcome back to my little corner on the internet. I apologize in advance if I'm a bit mellower in this video. I am recovering from being very violently ill, so that is why. Today we're doing a bit of a January wrap-up, my January favorites. So I'm gonna go through the books I read, some films I've watched, some current music listening habits, and just how my general goals for the year are going, little things I've been doing. That's kind of the gist of the video. But before we get into it, I'd like to thank Skillshare for working with me on this video. As we all may know, I am a lover of art. I've always loved art and drawing. I grew up always gripping a freaking pencil in my hand. And one of my goals this year that I told myself was that I have this habit of always drawing, like in watercoloring, flowers and plants, and I'm very obsessed with it, but I told myself that I want to branch out a bit more and get a bit better at my realism and I guess like figure drawing and drawing people and bodies and stuff, because I have been getting more into classics, hence why I have like a Botticelli print on my wall now. So something that I've been doing to get better at that is I've been taking some classes on Skillshare on figure drawing. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and tons more. They've also got classes at different levels of expertise, so if you just want to get really good at something that you already know, or if you just want to learn something completely new, they've got a class at your level, trust me. They've got tons of different types of classes for creative people. So they've got illustration, painting, graphic design, music, writing, freelancing, like so many options. And it was really cool to see like the density of it all and how many options they actually have. I took a little quiz and they recommended me do this learning pathway where they kind of curated a set of classes for figure drawing, and they take me through all the different sort of steps and main points. So gesture and shading, volume, dimension, all those things. And I started taking my classes and it's been so cool because they're so meticulous and so in-depth with everything. I've been very excited, and I just want to be one of those people that can whip out their sketchbook at an art gallery one day and just quickly sketch up one of the statues I'm looking at and be like, wow, yeah, I did that. That's something really cool, and I'm really excited to keep working through those classes on Skillshare. I've really been enjoying this. So if you're interested in joining me in boosting your sort of creative productivity this year, the first 500 people to click the link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial on Skillshare. So click down below and join us on Skillshare. So apart from just drawing lots, I've been using my journal, which is something that I pointed out in my journaling video, my little sketchbook on the back. I'm really loving my journal and my leather cover. It just feels so nice to have. But I think first thing we're gonna go through are the books that I have read this month so far. I took notes. I have read 7 books this month, which is pretty good. I think it's kind of more above the average for myself, to be honest, but some of these are quite small books that I read in one sitting. The first book that I finished this year was The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford. It was alright. It was cool. I don't have much to say about it. I wasn't completely in love with it. I think I found it slightly forgettable, and I don't know, it was just like a very mindless read, and I don't have much to say about it, which is in complete contrast to the second book I finished, which was The Story of the Lost Child by Elena Ferrante, the final book of the quartet. And when I tell you the emotional torment I went through, I was crying and writhing in my bed for like 20 minutes straight afterwards. Like I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating. It was an insane read. And if I reread that final paragraph about 7 times. I'm not even exaggerating. It was a lot. So please go in with protection for your heart if you read this final book, because oh my gosh, especially if you're a very emotional person like me. I freaking love that book. It was the series is amazing. 5 stars, loved it. Probably one of my favorites of this year. I think it'll end up being. It had such an acute perspective on all these relationships and growing old and mother-daughter relationships. It was so much. It was so well done. I loved it. The third book I read was Hamlet by Shakespeare. Freaking loved it. I love Shakespeare. I'm really getting into plays. I want to read more plays this year. And I really liked Hamlet. It was fun. I do think, however, that we needed more Ophelia in it. I'm just saying. And it was surprising to see how much easier it was for me to understand Shakespearean language in comparison to when I was reading it back in high school. I thought I was gonna have a hard time, but surprisingly, it was much easier to interpret, which was really nice. So it was a good way to see how much my brain has developed since then, which is good to know. The next book was If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I actually surprisingly really enjoyed that book. It was a really fun time. I did cry a fair amount, which was not what I was expecting. I do still, as we all know, it is still basically a sort of copy and paste of The Secret History, and I don't know, but I am planning to make a whole separate video dissecting and discussing The Secret History and If We Were Villains, because I feel like there's so much to them. It was quite good, and I just enjoy Shakespeare a lot, so it was nice to see the sort of references throughout the book. And then the next book I read, which I had a really fun time reading, was The Philosophy of Andy Warhol by Andy Warhol. I read that so quick. It was such a funny and witty book. It was an autobiography basically on his sort of various perspectives on various parts of life. It was such an easy thing to get through. I couldn't put it down really. Oh, it was such a lovely book to read. He's so funny, he's so clever. If the word cool and the concept of cool were a person, it would be Andy Warhol. He is the epitome of cool. Like, I love him so much. I miss him. He is just awesome. And I love his work. I got flashbacks to when I saw his things in person at MoMA. That was a really fun book. I really loved it. The next one was The Death of Francis Bacon by Max Porter. This was a very tiny little book. I read it in one sitting before bed because I think I had finished reading The Philosophy of Andy Warhol, but then I was like, it's still kind of early and I want to read more. So I picked up this book and I read the whole thing in one sitting. And it essentially follows, it's a sort of poetic telling of Francis Bacon's final 7 works, I think it was. But oh my gosh, it was such a vivid and weirdly obscure, violent, erotic depiction of his works. It was weird, it was creepy. I was so engaged by it, and I did in fact have a bit of a nightmare after I finished reading that night, just because it was so like unlike something I've read before. But if you're into the arts and sort of dark books on that, I feel like this is a really interesting, quick little book to read. I actually really enjoyed it. That was a really cool book that inflicted nightmares upon me. And then the final book of the month is Written on the Body by Jeanette Winterson, which actually I have like 30 pages left, so I haven't technically finished reading it, but I'm gonna finish it today, so I might as well talk about it because the entire book reads like poetry. It's so beautiful. Last night I was binge reading it because I was finally able to physically hold up a book in my hands because I wasn't able to do that because I got so sick. But oh my gosh, I was getting a bit of chest pains, and I don't know if it was because of me being sick before or if it was from the book, but I'm going to attribute it to the book because it's so beautiful, so poetic. It basically follows this unnamed narrator and her journey with dealing with this affair that she goes into with this woman and deciding whether or not this is the right decision to make, and all the sort of challenges that precede that afterwards, which really hurt my soul to read because I was in shock, to be honest. Yeah, I'm really loving that book. It's beautiful. I really want to read more by Jeanette Winterson now. I think the book Art and Lies is one that I really want to read by her. Those are my books of the month that I really enjoyed. I think The Pursuit of Love being the sort of bottom one, but the rest, solid reads. It's been a pretty good month for books, to be honest. Next, we're going to discuss film. If you don't know this, I'm doing a Bachelor of Fine Arts at uni, and my major is film. I've watched a fair amount of films this month. I'm not mentioning the ones that I found really bad and mediocre because there's no point, but all of these are 3 stars and above on my Letterboxd. We're gonna go in order from the first to the latest films I've watched. The first film of the year that I watched was Nosferatu, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was great. I think the tone of Dracula, the book, was so well conveyed in this film. The performances were great. That final scene was gorgeous, in my opinion. I would have that framed and put in my room if I could. I thought it was beautiful, and I feel like Lily Rose Depp did a wonderful job at her performance, and knowing that all of her convulsions weren't CGI or anything, they were all her, that is amazing. That was amazing. I love me a gothic adaptation. Another film that I watched was actually a short film, and I think it's still available on YouTube for free. You can find it, and I apologize in advance if I'm pronouncing this wrong because it's French, but it's Les Enfants de la Nuit. I think it's like the Children of the Night, something like that. But it was a quick little short film about this woman, this French woman, who falls in love with a German soldier during the Second World War, I think it was. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't very long. I thought it was like shot very beautifully. It was all in black and white, and I forget her name. The main character, she stars in The Portrait of a Lady on Fire as well. I am blanking on her name right now, but I love her, which is why I discovered this little short film. Another film I watched that I really liked was Jealousy, aka Jealousy in French, another French film starring Louis Garrel, and it basically just follows this man who I guess is divorcing this woman because he's in love with a different woman, and it kind of follows his relationship with this other woman and his daughter, and just bittersweet everyday life. There weren't subtitles, so I had to use the auto-generated ones on YouTube because I also watched this on YouTube for free. It was really interesting, and I enjoy movies that kind of just explore the mundane life and the little things that bring like a spark and joy into your life. I really enjoyed it. I just love Louis Garrel as well. I thought it was wonderful. Another movie I watched was My First Film, which I watched on Mubi. I had never heard of this film. It got recommended through Mubi to me, and I was so surprised by it. I thought it was so well done. It was beautifully shot. The way that it was structured was like very much poetic, and the more like as you watch through it, it kind of constructs itself, and it basically follows this woman shooting her first film and trying to construct this whilst also dealing with her relationship with this guy and the many struggles of being a woman in this industry and things like that. But I thought it was so beautiful and so well done and so entertaining. I think just go into it without knowing much about it. I highly recommend it. I really liked it. Another one which has become one of my favorite films ever is The Dreamers. There are many controversial opinions about this film because of its incestuous nature at times, but I actually really enjoyed it. It follows this American student who goes to France to study film, and it follows these cinephiles, and this American student gets dragged into this very weird, erotic, intimate relationship with these two French twins slash siblings, and it just follows them kind of just being hedonists, I guess, at this point. I thought it was so beautiful. I thought it was so silly and intense and weird, but also fun and just messy. I love films like that, and I thought the whole atmosphere of it all was very captivating. I really enjoyed it, and I would watch it again. Sue me, I don't care, okay? I really liked the film. And then these last two films I watched like back to back, the day after the other. The first one being We Live in Time. I went to watch that with my best friend, and holy shite, we cried so much at the end of that film. We sat in that movie theater after it finished for a while trying to regain our composure. The guy waiting for us to leave so he can clean up the theater was great. They did such an amazing job with that film. I developed so much empathy for the character that Florence Pugh plays because, I don't know, it deals with so much with agency and what you want to leave behind when you pass away, knowing that your time is coming and such. And there was so much depth to it, and it was so beautifully done. Their performances were top tier and amazing. I love Andrew Garfield as well. I loved it. And lastly, I also watched A Complete Unknown, which is the Bob Dylan biopic starring Timothée Chalamet. Loved that movie as well. I felt like they did such a good job. It felt very authentic and real, and like you were just fully just accompanying his life. I think Timothy's performance was great. How they explored his different relationships was so well done. It was just such a fun watch, and I had to hold back from applauding every time there was a performance on screen because it felt like you were like literally right there in the crowd as well. I thought it was so fun. I really liked it. But yeah, that's my little film wrap up of the month. Hopefully you get some recommendations that you can check out. The last sort of category is music, which I also love music. I do some personal writing on the side. I do some songwriting. I've never been brave enough to share it, but maybe if I get brave enough, I will one day. I just want to talk about some recent listening habits for this month because my listening habits are always shifting and changing all the time. Here are some of my current listening rotations. First one is Soft Cult, this really cool like shoegazy alternative rock band that was recommended to me by some friends. I've been obsessed. I've just been listening to their whole discography on loop. It's so nice. There's this one song by them, I think Spiraling Out, that reminds me of Circle the Drain by Soccer Mommy, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. I've just been obsessed with that song, bro. They're just so good. They're great. Another thing is also been listening to the Dreamers soundtrack. It's such a great soundtrack. It's so good. Like the 60s vibe of it from that era is just amazing. I've been listening to a lot of that. And then also, okay, I don't know how to pronounce it because it's a Russian band. It's this alternative rock Russian band, and there's one album, which I think is their latest album, that I've been listening to a lot. I literally added the Russian keyboard to my phone so I can type in their band name and stuff. But I think how you say their band is like Vitroika or something like that. I'll put it up on the screen, but I've been listening to that a lot. There was one day where I listened through the entire album like 5 times in a row on loop. There's just something about the rhythm of the bass that I really enjoy in a lot of their songs, and I just find that the Russian language is really cool as well. A lot of that, I've been getting into the Russian music as well, as you might expect. Highway 61 by Bob Dylan. After watching A Complete Unknown, I've been listening to that album a lot. Yeah, I don't have much to say about that. It's just a great album. Bob Dylan is the GOAT, you know? And then lastly, also just in general, a lot of Midwest emo. I've been getting back into my Midwest emo grind again. So lots of Mom Jeans, Free Throw, things like that. But yeah, I've always loved me a good Midwest emo vibe. Those are kind of my current music recommendations. One product that I've really been liking this month because I got gifted it on Christmas is the Glossier perfume. This thing is so nice. I don't think it's for everyone, to be honest, because it's a very sharp smell. Sweet, tangy, very sharp scent, but I really enjoy it. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good old wrap up of my January. One thing I want to point to is that I have a Substack. I don't think I've ever really explicitly mentioned that I have a Substack, but I recently started one, and I've only published 2 things in it so far, at least as far as filming this at this point. But I want to start posting more of my personal writing and poetry and share more of my creative things on there with everyone. So if you're interested, I have it linked in my description as well. That's kind of my little January wrap up. I am leaving for some traveling literally tomorrow, so I'm very excited. Be ready for some travel vlogs. I've been anticipating this for so long, and it was kind of a bit of a setback I think it was either food poisoning or some sort of stomach bug, but I'm feeling much better now. I hope you enjoyed this little wrap up and you got some art recommendations, and I will see you guys back in my next video, which will probably be a little travel vlog. Thank you everyone for supporting so far. It's been so fun. We're en route for 10K, which is crazy. I hope you have a beautiful, magical, wonderful day, night, week, month, and I will see you guys next week.